Bible is often presented as a perfect book, the ultimate word of truth, without flaw or error. But when you begin to read it carefully, paying attention to details, it doesn't take long before the contradictions start to surface. These contradictions are not small slips of language. They are significant differences in stories, rules, and ideas that shape the foundation of entire religions. If a book is said to be inspired by an all-knowing being, one would expect consistency. Yet the Bible, when examined closely, reflects more the voices of different human authors spread across centuries than the mind of a single divine author. One of the clearest examples comes from the creation accounts in the book of Genesis. In the first chapter, the order of creation is presented with structure. Light first, then the sky, then land and vegetation, then the stars and planets, then animals, and finally human beings, male and female created together. But in the very next chapter, the story shifts. Suddenly, man is formed first from the dust, then plants are placed in the ground, and then animals are created as possible companions, before woman is finally made from man's rib. The order is reversed. The two accounts cannot be harmonized without bending them out of shape. If these were the words of one author, consistency would be expected. What we see is the merging of two ancient traditions, left side by side, both claiming to be the beginning. Another contradiction that has puzzled readers for centuries is in the story of Noah's Ark. In Genesis chapter 6, God tells Noah to bring 2 of every kind of animal, male and female. Yet in Genesis chapter 7, God instructs Noah to bring 7 pairs of clean animals and 2 of the unclean ones. Which is it? 2 of each, or 14 of some and 2 of others? These details matter because they change the whole picture of what the story is saying. If this were a factual account, accuracy would be important. Instead, it reads like 2 versions of the same tale spliced together with no concern for contradiction. The flood itself raises further contradictions. One part of Genesis says the flood lasted 40 days and 40 nights. Another passage says the waters prevailed on the earth for 150 days. One section says Noah sent out a raven that flew back and forth until the waters dried, but another says he sent a dove, which returned with an olive leaf. The stories overlap and diverge, creating a patchwork narrative that only makes sense when understood as multiple oral traditions later combined. That's not the mark of divine clarity, but of human editing. The contradictions extend far beyond Genesis. Take the 10 Commandments, said to be the most important moral laws. Many people think there is only one version, but there are actually several. In Exodus 20, the Sabbath is justified by God's rest on the 7th day of creation. But in Deuteronomy 5, the reason given is different. It is a remembrance of Israel's slavery in Egypt. Both sets are called the 10 Commandments, but they are not identical. If God carved these into stone tablets, why would the explanations differ? Either one version is wrong, or both are simply human attempts at grounding laws in authority. Then there is the issue of who incited David to take a census of Israel. In 2 Samuel 24, it says God himself stirred David to do it, later punishing him for it. But in 1 Chronicles 21, it says it was Satan who incited David. This is not a minor slip. The difference changes the whole meaning. Was God responsible, or was it his enemy? A perfect book should not contradict itself on something so important. The resurrection accounts in the New Testament provide even more striking contradictions. The Gospels are supposed to be telling the same story of Jesus rising from the dead, but when you read them side by side, they can't be reconciled. In Matthew, 2 women go to the tomb, see an angel who rolls back the stone, and Jesus meets them as they run to tell the disciples. In Mark, 3 women find the stone already rolled away, see a young man in white, and leave in fear without telling anyone. In Luke, several women go together, see 2 men in dazzling clothes, and then report everything to the apostles. In John, Mary Magdalene goes alone, finds the stone rolled away, runs to tell the disciples, then returns and sees 2 angels, and finally, Jesus himself. How many women went? Was the stone already rolled away or moved in front of them? Did they meet 1 angel, 2 angels, or Jesus himself? Did they tell the disciples immediately or keep silent? The stories differ so sharply that they cannot all be true. These are the central events of Christianity, and yet the accounts conflict on the most basic details. The genealogies of Jesus are another contradiction. In Matthew, the family line of Jesus traces back through Joseph to King David by way of Solomon. In Luke, the genealogy also runs through Joseph, but goes back to David by way of another son, Nathan. Both genealogies end with Joseph, yet they are entirely different. Apologists try to claim that one is Mary's line and the other Joseph's, but the text itself never says this. Both clearly state they are Joseph's ancestry. If the Bible were clear and accurate, such confusion would not exist. Even the death of Judas, the disciple who betrayed Jesus, is told in contradictory ways. In Matthew, Judas hangs himself in regret. In Acts, Judas buys a field and falls headlong, bursting open so that his intestines spill out. The accounts are completely different. Did he hang himself, or did he fall to his death? Did he buy the field, or was it bought with his blood money by others? These are not details that can be easily blended together. The contradictions continue with God's character itself. In some verses, God is described as merciful and forgiving, slow to anger and abounding in love. In other places, God is portrayed as vengeful, commanding the slaughter of entire nations, including children and infants. In Numbers, God commands the Israelites to kill the Midianites, sparing only the virgins to be taken as spoils. In Hosea, the same God says, "I desire mercy, not sacrifice." These portrayals cannot be reconciled. They reflect the evolving beliefs of different writers, not the steady voice of an unchanging deity. There are contradictions in doctrine as well. In Romans, Paul says salvation comes by faith alone, not by works. In James, the writer insists that faith without works is dead, and that a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. These are not minor theological disagreements. They represent entirely different understandings of what it means to be saved. If this book is meant to guide eternal destinies, such conflicting messages raise serious questions. There are also contradictions in prophecy. In Matthew, Jesus says that anyone who calls another fool will be in danger of hellfire. Yet in the same gospel, Jesus himself calls the Pharisees blind fools. In one place, he condemns the word. In another, he uses it freely. In Mark 13, Jesus says that the end of the world will come before that generation passes away. That generation has long passed, and the world continues. If these were the words of an all-knowing being, such failed predictions would not exist. Even the laws in the Old Testament contradict themselves. In Exodus, God says children should not be punished for the sins of their fathers. But in Deuteronomy and elsewhere, children are explicitly punished for what their fathers have done. In one part, slavery is accepted and regulated, with instructions on how to buy, sell, and beat slaves. In another, there are reminders that all people are made in the image of God. Which is it? A world where slavery is endorsed, or one where every life is equal in value? These positions cannot both be true. When read without bias, these contradictions reveal that the Bible is not a single unified message, but a collection of writings from different times, cultures, and authors, stitched together and later declared to be perfect. The contradictions are not rare mistakes. They are woven throughout the text. They show human hands, human politics, and human perspectives. What they do not show is the work of a flawless divine mind. When people are told the Bible is perfect, they often never examine it for themselves. But once the contradictions are seen, they cannot be unseen. They expose the Bible as a human product, full of competing voices, each trying to define truth in their own way. And when a book that claims perfection falls short on its own pages, it loses the authority it demands.